Investigative journalism has always been the backbone of democracy, but right now, the reporters doing the work say the job is getting harder than ever. A new national survey from the Collier Prize for State Government Accountability at the University of Florida reveals a troubling paradox. While newsrooms are shrinking and access to public records is becoming more difficult, journalists say their commitment to watchdog reporting is actually increasing. The report highlights a profession under pressure where nearly 3/4 of respondents say tighter newsroom budgets limit their ability to pursue investigations, and more than 2/3 say gaining access to public records of government officials remains the biggest obstacle to holding power accountable. Today, on E&P Reports, we're going to explore what this new report reveals about the future of investigative journalism and what it means for local newsrooms trying to do more with less. Joining me today is Rick Hirsch, director of the Collier Prize for State Government Accountability at the University of Florida's College of Journalism and Communications. That's a big title, Rick. How do you get that on your business card?
Well, we tighten it a little bit on the business card, but it works.
All right. You spent decades in journalism, editor, newsroom leader, educator, including senior leadership roles at the Miami Herald, where you oversaw investigative reporting and newsroom operations. Today, through the Collier Prize, you help recognize and encourage the best state government accountability reporting in the United States. Is that pretty much your elevator pitch of what the heck you do, Rick?
Yes, Mike, and thanks for having me. That is really our mission here at Collier Prize. It is to encourage more investigative reporting of state and state-related institutions, and we do that in a variety of ways. But the donor who endowed the Collier Prize said his goal was to create a prize significant enough to incentivize more work like this. At the same time, we provide training and tools, a monthly newsletter, a quarterly honor, this annual survey, and also an annual symposium on investigative reporting.
Well, when we come back, we're going to dive into the findings from this year's report, including why access to public records is becoming harder, how shrinking newsroom resources are reshaping investigative reporting, and why many journalists say their commitment to accountability reporting is actually growing despite these challenges. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Hello, my name is Walter Hussman. Our family has been in the news business for over 100 years. Journalism includes two parts: reporting the news and providing opinions. But in recent years, there's been too much opinion appearing in news reporting. This has eroded public trust in news reporting to the lowest level of any U.S. institution. To address this, we started a nonprofit, the Center for Integrity in News Reporting.
The Center for Integrity in News Reporting, CFINR, is on a mission to rebuild public trust in journalism, one newsroom and one classroom at a time. We champion the effort to have news organizations and journalism schools create and prominently display their own clear, concise statements of core journalistic values. Learn more by visiting the Center for Integrity in News Reporting site at cfinr.org.
Rick, you surveyed investigative reporters across the country for this report. When you stepped back and looked at the results, what stood out to you the most from the report?
Well, on the plus side, it's really encouraging at the commitment that journalists have, reporters and editors, towards doing this work. And so there is as great or a greater commitment as ever to investigative reporting. And I think there are two reasons for that. This is a hard business. If you're going to stick in it, you've got to be committed and believe in the impact that it can have. And investigative reporting is what delivers that impact. I think increasingly, despite the challenges that are faced by reporters and editors, I think they know that the kind of work that most connects with audience is investigative reporting. And so that's the encouraging side of this.
Well, what I thought was intriguing and caught my eye was that 53% of respondents say their organization remains committed to accountability reporting, which is actually up, correct me if I'm wrong, from 44% a year ago. Why do you think that commitment is rising as resources decline?
Well, and I think that's because that is the differentiator that newsrooms have from each other. there are lots of ways to get the plain vanilla, what happened yesterday stuff in the news cycle. But what's really unique and draws unique audiences to news organizations is investigative work, impactful work, work you can't get anywhere else. And so I think there's both a altruistic reason that we grab onto this, but there's also a business case behind it.
All right. So, from your perspectives, does this reflect something deeper about how journalists view their role today in our, I guess, our polarized society?
I think very much so. The work isn't easy. The climate for doing it gets harder every day. So you really need to believe in the value and the impact you can have in doing this work. And I think journalists in general have to make a better case for how this is a public service job. This is public service work. But I think if you talk to individual journalists, that's why they do this. They do this to make a difference. They do this to have an impact. And investigative is where that impact takes place.
All right, let's switch gears a little. The report highlights that more than 2/3 of respondents say lack of access to public records, and we report on this, and government sources is their biggest challenge right now. What are reporters actually encountering today when they try to access records or information from public officials?
So on the issue of records, delay, delay, delay. I think that people in government have come to realize that if you delay impact, even if the law says something's public, many journalists, many organizations have a short attention span. So the longer it takes for them to get something, the less likely they are to end up getting it and reporting on it. I think it's not just delay, but it's also cost. There are many, many techniques that unfortunately some local governments employ to increase the cost of getting records, whether it be requiring redactions, the volume of the records, but what is charged or what is asked for in terms of turning over records can sometimes be prohibitive. So all of that contributes to an atmosphere where records are more and more difficult to get.
But a good deal of this audience is small local newsrooms. They don't have any legal resources whatsoever. How serious, in your opinion, Rick, now is that barrier in today's news media ecosystem?
Well, I think that is a really big deal. I think the capacity for news organizations to sue to get the records they're entitled to is limited by cost. And I think a lot of governments are aware of that. And so the harder you make it, the less likely news organizations are to persist in getting those records.
This to me was a duh. But another statistic in the report really jumped out to everybody, I think, that nearly 3/4 of respondents, I thought it would have been higher, say tighter newsroom budgets limit their ability to pursue the investigative work. And we have that dialogue on this program all the time. It's, having to do real investigative journalism takes time, it takes resource. Sometimes it never publishes, and sometimes publishers just want to go for the brevity and the story count. For many local publishers watching this episode right now, they're facing the same pressures. How is this really challenging investigative journalism today, in your opinion?
Really, Mike, I think it's up and down the line. I think for starters, having fewer reporters in the newsroom, your beat reporters are the ones who get the clues that lead to investigative stories. So I think if you actually did an analysis, and we have not done this, it would be interesting to know the percentage of reporters in newsrooms who do investigative work now versus before, when newsrooms were much larger. I would hypothesize that the actual percentage might be higher, even if the actual number is lower. But it's those beat reporters who get the scent of something that's really worthy of a deeper investigation. The best investigative stories don't come from some editor, somebody in a role that I was once in, saying, oh, gee, we should really look into this thing. It comes from somebody on a beat who gets a tip, who's covering the local county commission or city commission, and there's something that doesn't seem right here, and you start requesting records and you dig deeper, and then you find there's something really worthy of investigation. So at that sourcing of investigations, newsrooms are much weaker than they used to be. And so I think that is a big problem that's sort of the seed in the ecology of investigations, right? Um, so that's problem A. And then the cost of suing for records, for example. I've been involved in a number of investigations. There's a lot of attention now to Jeffrey Epstein, speaking of a duh. But a reporter on my team, Julie Brown, is really the person who broke that in 2018. The Miami Herald spent over $100,000 on legal fees for all sorts of lawsuits to get records related to that case. And very few newsrooms have the wherewithal and commitment to do something like that, and yet look at the impact that story's had.
All right, let's shift gears again. The elephant in the room, AI. The report also shows something really intriguing. About 56% of the respondents say AI presents both risks and benefits for investigative journalism. What kind of tasks are reporters actually doing today using AI tools, Rick?
So AI can be really useful in identifying potential sources for a story, experts in different fields that could take hours and hours of Google searching. So I think really valuable in that aspect. I can relate that the Collier Prize winner from 2 years ago, which was ProPublica and the Texas Tribune, looking into what went wrong in the Uvalde shooting in Texas, got a terabyte of data brought to them, and organizing that data in a way where reporters could really get to what was in there and what was valuable was something they were able to use AI to much more quickly get to the meat of things. And so it's an incredibly valuable research tool. And I think any journalist who wants to stay in this business needs to learn how to use it in that respect. Is it a valuable tool for writing stories? No, I think we still need to have reporters who can write the nuance. Are there risks involved in using AI? Many. Its propensity to hallucinate, I think that's the term of art right now, make stuff up, is high. And so anything you're using AI for needs to be vetted. But it does have a lot of value on the research side of the equation.
All right, let's leave the report and just talk to you now because you've been reading these reports and digesting them, and you see the whole ecosystem in a different way. Many of the people watching today are publishers and editors running small local newsrooms. They believe in accountability journalism, but they may not have the teams or the resources. What advice would you give smaller newsrooms that still want to pursue watchdog reporting today?
I would say partner. Partnering is incredibly important, and we're seeing it across the country. I'm in Florida. There's a news organization in Florida called the Florida Trib, used to call itself the Tributary, that's embarking on a number of efforts where they are reaching out to newsrooms across the state to partner on stories. ProPublica does this on a national basis with their local reporting initiative, where they link up with small newsrooms. They accept pitches from small newsrooms that think they have a significant investigative possibility and then commit resources to work with them. Fund for Investigative Reporting every quarter offers grants to news organizations which pitch investigative ideas, and they provide funding to help stand up those ideas. And they do that with about a dozen different news organizations every quarter. So there are resources available that can expand the impact that smaller newsrooms can have. There are also legal resources available
Definitely.
that smaller newsrooms can turn to help them when they are being
Slapped. Right.
on getting records. They can't help in every situation, but I think an awareness of what's available is really important for the smaller, smart newsrooms. And we're really seeing some of these startups, some of these nonprofits doing incredible work. The investigative reporting that's coming out of the state of Mississippi now, from Mississippi Today and Deep South Today, is really incredible. What's happening across Texas, with the Texas Tribune and ProPublica. And I mean, Texas Tribune's a pretty muscular organization now, but they started out small. I think is really impressive. Cal Matters in California is partnering with news organizations all over the state of California and making resources available for investigative reporting.
All right, let's bring this home, Rick. Despite all the challenges highlighted in this report, you all see something encouraging. Journalists remain committed to holding power accountable. And I mean, that's what keeps me going. You know, everybody, there's days where we keep fighting here at ENP to support local journalism, but I believe that, and I'm too Pollyanna sometimes, I believe it must survive, and that's why it will. But from your vantage point, working with reporters across the country, what gives you now the most hope about the future of investigative journalism?
So I'd say two things. One, just on the human level, the commitment of young journalists that I meet is so strong and so impressive. I was at Sunshine Fest 2 weeks ago in Washington, D.C., where there was a high school student journalist and a college student journalist, both of whom had used public records to break stories that caused change in the institutions where they worked. The high school journalist had disclosed that the soccer field that the team was playing on was like 10 years past its prime. It was an artificial turf field, and through public records was able to show that the school system knew that the student athletes were at risk, but wasn't putting the money forward to replace the field. And after she exposed that story, things changed. The money got allocated. There's going to be a new field. And I believe the student's 17 years old. If I was still running a newsroom, I'd be trying to figure out how I'm going to hire her when she gets out of college. But those stories like that, incredibly inspiring, and I think show the future of the business. And the other is this growth. Our special area of focus is state-related reporting, and there are numerous news organizations that have stood up over the last 5 to 10 years that are focused on covering state government accountability reporting in all 50 states.
Rick Hirsch, director of the Collier Prize for State Government Accountability at the University of Florida's College of Journalism and Communications. We thank you for issuing this report. It is accessible online. As a matter of fact, if you're tripping over this vodcast on Spotify or Apple, please head to editorandpublisher.com/vodcasts. You'll find a link to the report. Rick, we appreciate the hard work you guys are doing, and keep us in touch so we can amplify what you guys are doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it.